This program is sponsored in part by
Municipal Credit Union, serving the financial needs of our members since 1916. MCU, strong, trusted, growing.
Transit Check, saves money for commuters, lowers payroll taxes for businesses, and it's also good for the environment. With Transit Check, everyone benefits.
The Transit Managerial Benevolent Association, protecting the rights of non-represented, active, and retired managerial employees within the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. Mike Landy, President.
Con Edison, on it. Working for you 24/7, we're delivering reliable service, energizing your life, empowering your business. We're people helping people every day.
Transport Workers Union Local 100, representing the 35,000 men and women who move New York. We're New York's public transit union. John Samuelson, President.
And by the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association of the City of New York, fighting for the rights of the police officers who protect New York City. Patrick J. Lynch, President.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Transit News Magazine. This month, we're here at the New York Transit Museum celebrating the opening of New York City's first subway line. I'm Thalia Perez.
The Interborough Rapid Transit Company, or IRT as it's known today, operated the 9.1-mile subway line that consisted of 28 stations from City Hall to 145th Street and Broadway. I'm Lina Lansky.
The first subway line opened up in Manhattan on October 27, 1904. It then expanded to the Bronx, to Brooklyn, and finally to Queens. This month, we're going to take a look back on some previously aired stories that tell part of the history of our world-famous subway system.
Thalia, we have so much to see and so much history that we're not going to get to see it all. But before we get started on this month's show,
these 1960s-era subway cars have quite a history. I'm Joe Calisi, and I've got that story.
before the subway system became the most widely used mode of public transportation, most people traveled by trolley car. Then, in 1905, the motor bus was invented.
That's right, Lina. The motor bus has evolved to an efficient passenger carrier like the one I'm in today. Here's a look at the history of the motor bus.
The year was 1905, and a revolution was about to turn surface transportation on its head. A new vehicle, the motor bus, was set to take to the roads, wheeling in on one of the most important changes in mass transit to date. The timing was perfect. The city was expanding and undergoing rapid transformation with paved streets, the early stages of modern highways, and construction of the subway. The motor bus fit in nicely, as these vehicles had limitless potential.
By the early part of the 20th century, the electric trolley car was a workhorse in intracity transportation. The cars drew horsepower from overhead wires or sunken third rails beneath the surface of the street.
The disadvantage was that you have traffic congestion. You couldn't really maneuver around stalled traffic.
That was one of the dangers. It was repeatedly noted in the press, the dangers of trolleys, that the boarding was generally in the middle of the street, and there was the dangers of pedestrian accidents.
Also the high cost of electricity in running the lines, and some of the cars were old and outdated. And even though many systems try to upgrade their fleets, city fathers decided to eliminate streetcars.
It was amid calls for ways to move high volumes of commuters that the Fifth Avenue Coach Company introduced the city's first gasoline-powered bus service. Thanks to the General Vehicle Company, a single-deck wooden bus would change the way people traveled forever.
You can handle more people. It ran on fuel. It made fast, shorter stops. You could go at great lengths. So instead of having buses powered by horses, you had buses with horsepower.
In 1906, the Fifth Avenue Coach Company decided to import double-deck and right-hand drive buses from England. This motor bus was nicknamed Queen Anne. The double-decker buses had open tops, a wooden shell, and seats, while rolling along on hard rubber wheels.
Most people decided to sit on the open top deck, where you had more sightseeing and you had much greater capacity.
Well, the Queen Anne was a unique bus. The motorman was in the cab, and it had to have a conductor to collect the fares, which he was on the back. You had a spiral staircase going up to the top, or you walked into the lower level.
By 1908, 35 more buses were driving along New York City streets. Passengers paid 10 cents for their ride. By 1921, Staten Island became the city's second largest bus division in New York City.
Then in 1938, General Motors built the last European-designed bus for the Fifth Avenue Coach Company, Model 735, that was later nicknamed Queen Mary because it resembled the famous ocean liner, was a closed high rooftop double-decker. Queen Mary was a favorite among commuters. By the end of the 1930s, buses were beginning to make inroads in Queens. For many riders, these bus routes were the first public transportation that connected the people with the city.
The prime example would be what was called the 15 route, which later became Q32, which went into Queens. I mean, it brought people across the 59th Street Bridge, or also known as the Queensboro Bridge. And they would be able to, people who lived in Queens could come to work in Manhattan.
By 1941, commuters in Brooklyn and the Bronx began to benefit from service provided by the motor bus.
Before long, Brooklyn, America's third largest city, became New York City's largest division with over 1,400 buses and almost 240 million customers a year. By 1962, New York City Transit took over the operations of the many private-owned bus companies. It was around the same time that the style of these buses also changed. General Motors built a single-deck bus body, which was designed especially for New York City's wide streets and increasing number of commuters.
A typical 40-foot bus has anywhere from 35 to 40 seats on it, and that'll translate to 40 seat passengers plus maybe another 20 standees. So a total of 60 people on the bus translates usually to anywhere from 30 to 40 cars that are not on the street. Obviously less cars on the street, less traffic, and the buses are able to get through a bit faster.
These 40-foot motor buses were part of the 5101 series, which was the same type of bus similar to what Jackie Gleason drove in the classic television series, The Honeymooners. They were later called the Old Look bus design, which had comfortable features.
Oh, the Old Look buses, which I enjoyed riding as a kid because they were just so much fun to ride. They basically had the smaller square windows. You know, they were fairly comfortable seats. They were mostly cushioned seats back in the early days. But due to vandalism, they had to remove the soft seats.
The Old Look bus design also featured double front doors to help load and unload passengers, and a central emergency door. The 5101 series was also longer and wider, enabling more customer capacity. They were in service from 1949 to 1972. By the early 1970s in Nassau County, many local bus services had gone bankrupt. The state and county combined the operations of these small companies into MTA Long Island Bus. It was during these years that General Motors and the New York City Transit Authority introduced a new look, or fishbowl design of buses.
You know, those buses were absolutely beautiful compared to the prior Old Looks, as we call it. Had a sweeping design which was phenomenal. It had never been seen before. Tremendous glass windows in the front for the driver to have great visibility while driving. Stainless steel sides, windows which opened up, and it gave sort of like a movement idea. That even when the bus was still loading passengers, it sort of gave the movement feeling of movement.
And over rough roads, passengers and drivers alike enjoyed airbag suspension and power steering.
When there was no power steering, it was very difficult for the driver to turn the bus, especially if it wasn't rolling. It took a lot of effort. With power steering and hydraulic aided power steering, a driver could turn a steering wheel with practically one finger. So it made it a lot easier for them to drive a bus all day.
The fishbowl buses prevailed for more than 30 years on the streets of New York City. During this time, Air-conditioned bus service was also introduced, giving passengers a comfortable ride during the summer months. New York City Transit introduced commuters to a new fleet of buses called Advanced Design buses, which also had many distinguishing features.
The advanced design was quite a boom forward for the Transit Authority. The design was radically different from the fishbowl. We started out with the Grumman Flexible, the 870. The design was completely different from anything they've ever seen before, even though it was a sort of a rectangular looking bus, but it still was very sleek looking, and it performed fairly well. Then after that came the RTS, which was General Motors Advanced Design bus.
The RTS bus was second in the series of the Advanced Design buses, RTS standing for Rapid Transit Service. Initially, it was unveiled during the 1964 World's Fair, and they have traveled millions of miles and served us with millions of passengers who've enjoyed a safe, reliable ride.
That reliable ride grew with the introduction of so-called articulated buses along busy corridors.
Most of the municipalities that are using them now are using them in the time frame where there's highly congested time periods during rush hour in the morning and the afternoon.
As the authority geared up to meet the ridership demand, fueled by MetroCard discounts, it did so by deploying new buses outfitted with emission technologies aimed at reducing air pollution.
A fundamentally new kind of bus, an electric hybrid bus, and the difference is that this bus is powered by electric motors. So there's no transmission, there's no drive shaft, there are electric motors at the rear wheels that power the bus. So what we're doing here now on a hybrid bus, when you hit the accelerator, instead of that big diesel engine winding up and making emissions and making that smoke that people hate so much, we get a big kick from the batteries.
Today, with cleaner fuel, another people-friendly addition was added on the Advanced Design buses, which is the kneeling feature.
The kneeling buses are helpful for people with mobility impairments, who had hip and knee replacements like Hulk Hogan. It makes it easier for them to access the bus without having to negotiate steps.
New York City Transit could also boast about its 100% wheelchair accessibility buses.
The step would go down. You would bring the passenger into the bus and would seat them right towards the rear of the coach.
Having wheelchair accessible buses, a fleet that's 100% accessible, has changed the lives of people, especially who use wheelchairs, in that they can get on a bus spontaneously, get to work on time, get to school on time.
One of the last frontiers for buses and commuters to conquer were speedier trips.
We have a lot of express service, which is good because it reaches out of boroughs into the city. I see buses as constantly growing, as long as they can create traffic lanes for buses.
Ridership on New York City Transit buses has steadily increased since its debut. Traffic statistics indicate that commuters traveling on buses has increased from a few million to over 740 million riders. From the very beginning, it was clear that the motor bus would set new standards in public transportation. 100 years later, improvements are being made to ensure its place in the transit landscape of the future.
Lina, did you know in 1932, the city's Board of Transportation opened up the Independent Rapid Transit Railroad, or IND?
Actually, Thalia, I did. And in 1940, the city purchased the IRT and the BMT and became the sole owner and operator of all the New York City subway lines.
And in order to keep this new unified subway system safe, all security personnel were combined to create Transit's own police department. Here's that story.
Back in the early 1900s, the IRT, which is the Interborough Rapid Transit, and the Brooklyn Manhattan Transit, the BMT, were privately owned, financed, and had their own security personnel. But when the IND line went into service in the 1930s, it was run by the city's Board of Transportation.
The city appointed railroad police to that organization. So you had three different police departments. Eventually, They all merged because the IRT and the BMT went bankrupt. The city of New York took over and they became transit police sometime around 1936.
In 1947, Catherine Morelli and Frances Haber were the first women to join the ranks on the New York City Transit Police Department. Though their appointments were a breakthrough, the department was still dominated by men, and women still had to prove their worth on the job.
There were a lot of men who were very resentful that we didn't have to go to patrol, that we went into the detective division in the beginning before they changed the structure of women in the department. Some people resented it, and it was basically you had to prove yourself whatever you did, you know. If you were going to go out with a partner, even in plain clothes, and if you were going to fight with somebody that you were going to arrest, you better get into it with it. If you stood back, then you got a reputation as being somebody who wasn't a good police officer.
Both male and female officers worked tirelessly fighting crime, helping those in need, and sometimes making the ultimate sacrifice.
We had several of our officers that were killed. And one girl in particular, Irma Lozada, she had worked for me, and she wound up getting killed. She was in plain clothes working with a male officer, and the male chased one guy, and she chased one guy, but she wound up getting killed. The guy took the gun off her and shot her.
Most of the crime in the subway involved, larcenies, purse snatches, robberies, and usually when I worked the late night tours, they were much quieter. You didn't get as many, robberies and larcenies.
In the 1980s, the crime rate was at an all-time high. But when William Braddon joined the department in 1991, the crime rate started to decline. The New York City Transit Police Department won state and national accreditation, joining the ranks of the other 175 police departments in the country.
If you have substantial resources and you apply them properly, chances are you'll have a crime reduction. So when we had the additional resources, we were able to fight crime in a much better way.
Even though back in the day, the police carried 6 shooters and low-tech gear, they still got the job done.
This here is what they call the police chain nippers, or come-alongs. And what they would do is they would put this around the prisoner's hand, and the officer would hold it this way, and if the prisoner gave him any trouble, they would twist this, and of course, it would give the guy some pain, and he wouldn't resist.
But in April 1995, there was resistance to the merging of the Transit Police Department and the NYPD under Mayor Giuliani. The merger was nicknamed the Hostile Takeover.
The Transit Authority fought against it, but ultimately the city was paying several $1 million to the Transit Authority for the transit police. And the mayor said that he would stop paying the money. Transit Authority had no choice but to relinquish the department.
We had a good record. We had proven ourselves with the number of summonses and arrests and juvenile reports that we had done over the years. And our officers were just as good or better as the NYPD officers.
Today, the department is called the New York Police Department Transit Bureau and is regarded as the best in the country. I'm Sonia Sammy reporting for Transit News.
The model board and interlocking machine are original to this still operational 1936 station and typical of the equipment used on much of the IND.
During this time period, most of the people that worked in the transit system were men, but that would begin to change during World War II when women started working in signal towers like this one. Here's a look at the history of women in transit.
Women have traveled far in transit since first coming on board in 1910. Early on, they performed menial tasks like keeping the potbelly stoves filled with coal and cleaning restrooms. However, during the Second World War, women joined the skilled workforce. And sometimes the widow of a transit worker would be given a railroad clerk position. However, These early beginnings were mostly false starts as the men returned from war to reclaim their jobs. Today, women are proving themselves, especially in hard-hat areas. One groundbreaking example is Lillian King, Transit's first woman iron worker.
They started burning and welding and everything, and I was all burned up. I had on heels and stockings, and I liked it. And he said, "You're going to be a welder." I loved it ever since. And I really don't try to compete out here. I think a lot of the people try to compete with me when I first came out here because I am a woman. But they know I can weld. I can weld. I'm a first-class welder.
And what is Lillian's advice to those women who want to take on the challenges of a non-traditional job?
Go for it, young ladies. You will enjoy it. You will be able to use your mind, your skills, and everything else. And every day is a new day. Every day is different. Every day is challenging.
Another woman making strides in transportation is Kay McCoy, the first full-time female employee at the Queens Midtown Tunnel.
I was the first female to say qualified for the tractor, first permanent desk officer, female. And now in the clerk's office, that's again another first.
One of New York's main arteries is run by Karen Gardner, who is putting her skills to work at the Queens Midtown Tunnel.
You know, whether a man or a woman, I think this agency promotes opportunity and promotes people who are interested and who have the skills to do the job.
Because of the fact that other women have held this position, has that kind of paved the way for your being here?
Oh, it sure has, because I'm not unusual on the toll plaza. The employees have seen women before, and the customers have seen women before. So I guess there are some people who say this is a non-traditional job for a woman, but it's really not.
Today, gender is not an issue, and anyone can achieve their professional goals based solely on their abilities. This is Nora Bassett reporting for Transit News.
Hi, I'm Michael J. Garner, MTA Chief Diversity Officer. The award-winning MTA Small Business Mentoring Program is the first program of its type that has been recognized and approved by the federal government. The Small Business Mentoring Program has been designed to stimulate the growth and development of small businesses to create job opportunities within the MTA's 14-county service region. To learn more about the MTA's Small Business Mentoring Program, email us at sbmp@mtahq.org or call 212-878-4755.
Today's subway cars have 4 electronic motors, all working together, providing faster acceleration and minimizing the chance for mechanical failure.
Subways have come a long way through the years. Today, motors turn electricity into motion. Our reporter, Joe Calisi, has some subway car history.
The R32 car class was the first mass-produced all-stainless steel fleet on the New York Transit system. In 1964, they were track-tested on the Sea Beach line. Built by the Budd Corporation, these cars were lighter and faster than their BMT standard counterparts.
The R32s were bought to open up that connection, and they were placed in service on the Brighton line first. That's why they had the name Brightliners.
They were the best cars maybe in the entire world. They used a brand new technology, and this method of construction became the standard not only for North America, but for the entire world.
On July 22, 1965, Rapid Transit Day began at the Queensboro Plaza Station and ended at the World's Fair.
The Lowenbrow Gardens Oompah Band provided the music, played Hail, Hail, the gang's all here as the trains arrived, and the very beautiful Lowenbrow Gardens waitresses served as hostesses on the train and then served us our sauerbraten dinner at the fairgrounds.
It was the first R32 trip from the 4th Avenue subway line in Brooklyn directly into the Queens Boulevard IND.
So the train operator really liked to drive those cars because to them they were like jackrabbits, they were really fast.
Purchased from the St. Louis Car Company, 200 R38s were to supplement the R32s on the Sea Beach, West End, and 6th Avenue Brighton lines. Delivered in 1966 and 1967, the last 10 of them were the first subway cars to be delivered with factory-installed air conditioning. The same company that gave us the R38s also gave us the R40s.
They had better information signs, so the passengers know exactly where they're going while they were riding these cars. And some of them had air conditioning equipment, which made it a lot more pleasant to ride these cars during the summertime.
The St. Louis Car Company delivered 400 R40s. The famous design team of Raymond Lowy and William Snaith created the unique design.
One of the transit cops noticed that there was a kid standing on the outside of the car in the doorwell. And he immediately called police headquarters and had the train intercepted at Church Avenue where the kid was still on the platform. Of course, they pulled him in. I had the film developed immediately. When the chairman saw the picture, he immediately ordered that all R40 cars have railings installed on the back to prevent anybody from falling. And for that reason, it was only those first few trains that went into service the first week ran without the railings.
With the appearance of the R40s was unique. Also gave an aerodynamic look, because again, instead of having a straight end, it had this slant end.
After about 40 years of service on New York City Transit's B Division, it's finally time to say goodbye to some old stand-up subway cars. Reporting for Transit News, I'm Joseph M. Calisi.
Wow, Thalia, I really learned a lot this month about the start of transit in New York City.
It has been an amazing experience here at the New York Transit Museum, where you can see and touch all of that history. Well, that about wraps up this month's show. If you have any questions, comments, or story ideas, you can email us at transitnews@nyct.com. From all of us here at Transit, I'm Thalia Perez. Thanks for watching.
And I'm Lina Lansky. Thanks for riding. Hey, you want to go back downstairs and take a look at some of those trains?
Sure, sounds good.
This program is sponsored in part by
Municipal Credit Union, serving the financial needs of our members since 1916. MCU, strong, trusted, growing.
Transit Check saves money for commuters, lowers payroll taxes for businesses, and it's also good for the environment. With Transit Check, everyone benefits.
The Transit Managerial Benevolent Association, protecting the rights of non-represented, active, and retired managerial employees within the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. Mike Landy, President.
Con Edison, on it, working for you 24/7. We're delivering reliable service, energizing your life, empowering your business. We're people helping people every day.
Transport Workers Union Local 100, representing the 35,000 men and women who move New York. We're New York's public transit union. John Samuelson, President.
And by the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association of the City of New York, fighting for the rights of the police officers who protect New York City. Patrick J. Lynch, President.